Welcome to the local campaign here on Rogers TV. We thank you so much for joining us today. Our focus is on the riding of Ottawa Centre. Before I introduce you to our candidates, I'm going to go over the format with you at home because it differs from previous formats. We won't be doing a debate format as we've done in the past due to different circumstances, so we have gone to a virtual format and a question and answer session with our candidates. So we will have our usual opening statement with each candidate. They'll have 60 seconds for their opening statement, and then that will be followed by a number of questions. Again, 60 seconds for each candidate to answer those questions, and we will end with a closing statement from each candidate with a 60-second time clock. Now I will introduce our candidates in alphabetical order, starting with Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party, Thomas Borcsok, who's running as an independent, Katie Gibbs from the Liberal Party, Joel Harden of the NDP, Josh Rachlis, also running as an independent, Stuart Ryan from the Communist Party, and Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front. It is now time for our opening statements. A reminder, each candidate has 60 seconds, and we begin with Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party. You have 60 seconds.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Shelby Bertrand, and I'm your Green Party of Ontario candidate for Ottawa Centre. We're here today on this unceded Algonquin territory to talk about the future of this beautiful community and the future of Ontario. I'm an educator with U Ottawa, an activist, a Crohn's patient, and previous worker with residential school survivors, here in my third election to do some myth busting. Far from simply the environmental party, the Greens are here to build better communities for Ontarians. With Mike Schreiner at Queen's Park, the Green movement will uproot inequality, lower the cost of living, give hardworking Ontarians the healthcare and education they deserve. I came here today to show you that our best and brightest future lies in the best and brightest communities. These are the communities the Green Party wants for Ottawa Centre, and these are the communities I, with Mike Schreiner, would fight every day for at Queen's Park. Thank you.
Thomas Borcsok, running as an independent. You have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Hi there, I'm Thomas Borcsok. I live and work in Ottawa Centre, and I'm running in this election as an independent candidate. Although I'm running as an independent, rest assured that it's not because I fundamentally disagree with the big parties. In fact, I want to work with the Ontario Liberals, NDP and Greens, even if we have differences of perspective. What I offer as an independent is a promise of progress over partisanship. As I see it, the alternative is another 4 years of Doug Ford exercising unchecked power, which I worry means another 4 years of lip service to the climate crisis, a withering public health care system, and increasing cuts to critical social services like we saw with legal aid. Ottawa Centre needs an MPP who is capable of working collaboratively with other MPPs to find solutions to the problems affecting everyday Ontarians. The evidence and the facts should speak for themselves, and partisanship mustn't stand in the way of progress.
Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Gibbs. I'm your Ontario Liberal candidate here in Ottawa Centre. I'm running to make our community more sustainable and equitable. I'm a scientist by training. I have a PhD in biology from U Ottawa. Then I started a not-for-profit organization called Evidence for Democracy, which pushes for governments to be more science-based and transparent. I also have 2 young kids, so I know firsthand just how hard the past few years have been on families in particular. And it was so clear during this time that our current government had no interest in listening to science, in prioritizing the needs of kids and families and those most vulnerable in our community. So I felt I needed to do something and step up to try to build the kind of future that I want for my kids in this province. Thank you so much.
Joel Harden from the NDP, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
It's been a pleasure to work for you here in the Centre. My name's Joel Harden. We've been through a lot in 4 years. We've been through historic floods, a tornado hitting our power and knocking it out for the downtown, a pandemic, a convoy. But through it all, what I've seen as your member of provincial parliament is that there is so much compassion and resilience in this community, so much willingness for neighbors to look after neighbors, that we can get through anything. And I actually think we have a lot to teach Ontario. It matters who you send to Queen's Park. I want you to consider sending me again because I want to listen and work with you. We've held over 60 town halls. We've reached over 7,000 residents who needed our office's help with casework. And we can help Ontario break through some of the biggest problems that I hope we talk about in our time today.
Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Josh Rachlis. It's great to be back on Rogers, where I hosted shows for 4 years in my youth. In previous debates in this election, I've drawn cartoons and sang songs to help me stand out because I don't have a party with me, but there are no props allowed for Rogers, so it's just me and my words. So I'll tell you my credentials. I've run for the Green Party 4 times and twice for Mayor of Toronto. I was on Mike Schreiner's shadow cabinet, and I wrote the love song for Elizabeth May that went viral in the 2011 election. I've even been trained by Al Gore as a climate leader. So obviously I'm passionate about the environment, but I like to think of myself as Greens Plus because I take on the best qualities of all the parties, and as an independent, I'm free to do what's best for you. As an advertising copywriter, I've built billion-dollar brands, and I want to build the brand of Ottawa and Ontario. I'm an ACTRA member actor. You maybe remember me as the little mini-man in commercials I wrote for Nutri-Grain. I do stand-up comedy around town, and on my daily walks, I pick up litter, and I invite you all to join me, both for walks and for getting me elected as your MPP.
Stuart Ryan from the Communist Party, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
My name is Stuart Ryan. I'm the candidate for the Communist Party in Ottawa Centre. I'm a member of the Ottawa Health Coalition and of the Make River Public Working Group.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
My name is Raymond Samuels. I'm the leader of the Ontario People's Front. There are 3 vital questions which have arisen out of the pandemic. One is, have we reached a stage in which the role of our government is simply to force citizens to inject into their bodies whatever products that big pharmaceutical and biotech companies dream up under the threat of the law? Have we also reached a stage in which there's no place for independent scientific verification of data, and anyone who doesn't agree with a corporation's assertion that their medical products are the greatest thing since sliced bread are to be labeled as conspiracy theorists? Have we also reached a stage where we turn our back against the families who have experienced the trauma of dead or permanently injured loved ones as a result of having been coerced into taking a pharmaceutical product? I'm running as a candidate in behalf of the voiceless in Ottawa Centre. Our People's Front, our Ontario People's Front, supports the defense of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, a just society for all, including the affirmation of universal public health care, the eradication of homelessness through a quality of living Bill of Rights, and we're also against global warming, which appears to be intentionally orchestrated.
You've run out of time. First question. Cost of living is perhaps the biggest issue for many in this election. What will you do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses? Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for that. So this answer is really twofold for us. The first thing concerns the better, smarter, more strategic urban planning that the Green Party is passionate about, as well as those renewable energy strategies that will help lower utility bills and lower the price for taxpayers, living in certain communities that are currently inefficiently run. The second thing that will target and help alleviate some strain from the worst off in our society are these social benefits that the Green Party really wants to boost. We are doubling ODSP, we are doubling Ontario Works and all other associated payments on benefits packages, and those are going to help some of the people struggling the most with cost of living right now, and especially affordable housing. I should also add, in my approximately 10 seconds left, that the Green Party has a beautiful so-called masterclass by the Toronto Star affordable housing plan that's approximately 60 pages and highly granular, and you should check that out.
Thomas Borcsok, same question.
That is a great question. Now, minimum wage is obviously one way of making life more affordable, and I do agree with the other parties that there needs to be an immediate increase to minimum wage. I think that there are ambitious plans, such as the NDP's, but I do think what needs to be considered is tying minimum wage to inflation so that it keeps pace with the rising cost of living. I also think that in increasing the minimum wage, we really have to be looking out for small businesses because we want to make sure that everyone in the community can benefit from a living wage. And that I think is a critical priority. I also think of massive importance is increasing ODSP payments and Ontario work payments.
Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party. Same question for you. Cost of living is perhaps the biggest issue for many in this election. What will you do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses?
Yeah, I think people in our community are really struggling to afford everything from food and shelter and gas. We have a really comprehensive plan full of creative solutions to make life more affordable for Ontarians and especially folks here in Ottawa Centre. We're going to actually reduce transit fares to $1, make all transit $1 a ride across the province, a great way to make it cheaper for people to move around. We have a fantastic housing plan where we're planning to build 1.5 million new homes across the province, including many deeply affordable non-market units. We're also going to reduce some of the HST on prepared foods to make it a little bit cheaper for people to get a meal out or get food from a takeout counter. We're also going to bring in a really comprehensive childcare policy, making childcare $10 a day, but also making before and after school care $10 a day as well.
Joel Harden, you have 60 seconds for the same question.
What's important for the Ontario NDP is that we get on top of our overheated housing market. Rents are out of control, house prices are out of control, and it's because we've had government after government watch as big entities have bought up vast amounts of properties and sat on them as investments. Did you know that there are over 22,000 vacant units in housing every year in Ottawa? That's ridiculous. The NDP is going to ask those large property owners to ensure that they pay for the price of keeping homes vacant when folks desperately need homes. We're going to make sure that we build 1.5 million units of housing in the next 10 years, and particularly deeply affordable, non-market, co-op, and community housing. We're going to get on top of skyrocketing rent increases by having tenant-to-tenant rent controls to make sure the big corporate landlords can't jack up the rent when it's absolutely not called for. We're here to work hard for you.
Same question to Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent. The cost of living is perhaps the biggest issue for many in this election. What will you do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses?
Okay, what would I do to help people afford their day-to-day expenses? You know what? I'm looking at ideas from all the parties, and everybody has good ideas. I can tell you my values, and I value people being able to afford things. I've been going to the grocery store lately, and I just can't believe how expensive things are, and I know how scary that is, especially for people that are on fixed income. So I've looked at all the different platforms, and I like the idea of raising the amount that people get for Ontario disability or for their seniors amounts, I think it's called the old age security, and whatever we can do to strengthen the economy so that there's good jobs out there, that the jobs are higher paying, they're modern jobs, anything we can do to pivot. And that's what everybody's talking about these days. Everybody has to pivot, and then that includes the province, adapting so that we can all live our best lives and afford it.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party, you have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
I would put in price controls. I'd have a minimum wage of $23 an hour so people can afford the groceries that they need, such as myself.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, again, 60 seconds to answer the same question.
What we will do in the Ontario People's Front is focus on an economic policy which boosts job creation through supporting our small business communities, because they've encountered a lot of bankruptcy during the pandemic. And so we have to focus on an economic plan which boosts job creation and relies on support which is constructive, which based upon a consultation with the small business communities, and also which redresses cost of living through a set of policies which is designed to boost our economy in general.
Next question. The pandemic highlighted the fact that our long-term care system is underfunded and understaffed. The standard of care in LTC needs a great deal of improvement. How would you address this expensive yet necessary undertaking? Thomas Borcsok, who is running as an independent. You have 60 seconds.
That's a really important question, and one which is, hits close to home for me. I recently lost my grandfather in December of last year, and something that was very much important to him after he lost my grandmother especially was staying inside his home. So I know that long-term care, it needs to be better funded and provincially regulated so that we can avoid, what happened in the COVID-19 pandemic, where we lost 4,000 residents. I think that's absolutely unacceptable. And I bring my grandfather up because I think we should have more options for people to, age in the home. That was really important for him. And it was a matter of, dignity. And I know it would improve to the end. And I know that not all seniors in Ontario are that lucky. So I really think we need to increase funding to long-term care and make it provincially regulated.
Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party. Again, 60 seconds to answer.
Yes, I think like everyone, I'm completely appalled by the treatment of our seniors in long-term care over the past few years and during the pandemic. It is so clear to me that at this point in time, we need a complete overhaul of our system and how we take care of seniors. And that's exactly what the Ontario Liberal plan is going to do. We are committing to completely phasing out for-profit long-term care and shifting the system to nonprofit care and shifting the focus on helping people age at home in their communities with their friends and neighbors and families, which is where people want to age. We're going to do this in part by a huge investment into the system. Part of that investment is going to mean giving PSWs a raise to $25 an hour so that we can get more PSWs into the system and paying them a living wage so that they can help care for our seniors.
Same question. The pandemic highlighted the fact that our long-term care system is underfunded and understaffed. The standard of care in LTC needs a great deal of improvement. How would you address this expensive yet necessary undertaking? Joel Harden of the NDP, you have 60 seconds.
The only way we can get on top of the crisis in long-term care is by changing the priorities of the system. For the last 2 decades, under Conservative and Liberal governments, we've seen the slow takeover of this sector by large for-profit companies like Chartwell, Revera, Extendicare, and Sienna Senior Living. What they have done is drive wages down, labor standards down, and therefore conditions of care for seniors and persons with disabilities, often crammed 3 to 4 in a room. This was the weak link when the pandemic hit us. These were the vulnerabilities preyed upon by a virus. The Armed Forces report that was issued should shame us all. The notion that 4,400 precious souls who built this province lost their lives is unconscionable. The NDP is going to take this system out of private hands and move it into public and nonprofit hands. We're not going to spend a lot of money, as Mr. Ford proposes, on a highway north of Toronto people don't want. We're going to put that money into care for our seniors.
Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent. Same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, the long-term care issue is really something that scares me. When I saw how many people were dying in long-term care, and apparently it wasn't just from COVID, it was from dehydration, which is scary. And I know some parties are talking about getting private businesses out of the long-term care industry and making it all public. I'd have to research that to see if that's a good idea, because I know sometimes when things are run by the government, it's not necessarily better. But whatever we can do to make long-term care better, I've got aging parents, and I'm not that young myself. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I even had relatives in that during the pandemic, and I saw how scary it was to be isolated there and how scary it would be to not have proper care. So whatever we can do to invest in this is something we need to do, because we might all be there one day, and that's our most vulnerable people. So my priority is in that.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party. Same question to you. The pandemic highlighted the fact that our long-term care system is underfunded and understaffed. The standard of care in LTC needs a great deal of improvement. How would you address this expensive yet necessary undertaking?
We would make all long-term care publicly owned. The Make Revera Public campaign is because the Carlingview Manor had 65 people die during the pandemic. So we would make Rivera publicly owned, and with enough staff and PPEs so the people there would not die.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
Yes, the long-term care homes, the problem with long-term care in general is that I've noticed, and going to long-term care homes, is that there are some long-term care home facilities where the residents are is very nice, almost posh and fabulous. And there are other two long-term care homes where the residents don't have money. They're oftentimes managed by private providers, and their people are living in squalor and like a slum, horrendous conditions. So we need to establish standards for a high quality of maintenance of these long-term care home facilities, which focuses on a public supported system similar to OHIP, but for long-term care home facilities, which ensures that when you need a facility, no matter what your income status is, you'll be provided with a high quality of support to your living conditions based upon a high quality of standards, so we don't have a privatized for-profit system. Because what happened was that
Mr. Samuels, you are out of time. Same question to Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party. The pandemic highlighted the fact that our long-term care system is underfunded and understaffed. The standard of care in LTC needs a great deal of improvement. How would you address this expensive yet necessary undertaking?
Thank you again. So the state of long-term care has a status currently of normalized neglect. Bare necessities are taken care of, and that's about it. And it's about burnt out, disrespected staff and a history of cuts in prior leadership. We need to heavily invest not only in more beds, but in the human beings that are essential in our system instead of just bricks and mortar machines. The GPO would deprivatize and implement national standards so that you know you are getting more than the basics when you have to go through this process with somebody in your family. We would pay PSWs a living wage. We'd offer nurses and PSWs more mental health care, chances at professional development, and micro-credentialing. We would make free the first round of post-secondary to encourage people to maybe go into these disciplines more. And we'd invest in more LTC beds and home-themed care for the future of Canada's aging population.
Next question. The Ottawa region has had its fair share of difficulties with their public transit master plan, specifically the LRT. Regardless of what comes out of the provincial inquiry, will you help ensure residents get a system they can rely on? Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, absolutely. People in Ottawa need to have reliable and affordable public transit. We are a growing city, and in order to meet our climate goals, we have to help people get out of their cars and onto public transit. A big cornerstone of the Ontario Liberal plan is $1 transit. This will help encourage people to get back on transit after the pandemic and rebuild that trust in our transit system. The Ontario Liberal Party is also committing more funding for transit at the municipal level to help improve the services as well. We're also committing to funding Phase 3 of the LRT, taking into consideration the lessons learned from the public inquiry so that we can improve the process going forward to make sure that everyone in Ottawa has that reliable and affordable public transit that they need to make it easier and cheaper for them to move around our great city.
Joel Harden of the NDP, same question. You have 60 seconds.
You can absolutely ensure that Joel Harden and the Ontario NDP here in Ottawa Centre are going to fight to make sure Ottawa has the transit system it deserves. I worked for 2 years after holding several community town halls on this very issue to make sure there was a public inquiry into our LRT system that's had 5 derailments, multiple mechanical problems, despite being brand new. The issue here, in my view, is a public-private partnership arrangement that advantages wealthy connected insiders and not us. We urgently need a functioning LRT, and we need the province to get to the table with consistent funding. There once was a time where the province of Ontario funded transit 50% and shared that with the municipalities. Municipalities are going to get that. Ottawa's going to get that with an Ontario NDP government. We're also going to make sure we bring transit fares down. We increase rider services, and we're not going to try to gimmick you with bucka whatever. Real transit that works, that's open and accountable to all. That's what the NDP believes in.
Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
Absolutely, I would help make the LRT a system we can rely on. I've lived in Toronto a lot of my life, and I never owned a car because I could just get on the streetcar or the subway and go anywhere I want. And I would love the same thing for Ottawa. I remember when I was growing up in Ottawa, in Nepean, I'd have to call and find out when the bus is coming, and if I miss it, I wouldn't be able to get to school. And I love that we have an LRT now. I've been on it, and it's just so exciting to be able to get on a train and just go straight across the city. It makes the city so much more livable and so much more green because you don't have to get in a car or even an Uber. And obviously it needs to work. So whatever needs to be done to fix that, it's worth investing in the things that'll make our lives better, right? Like if we can get out of cars and get onto the LRT and make the city run better, that's an investment that pays back both in mental health and physical health and the economy. So I wouldn't even look at that as an expense. That's an investment that we need to make. And yeah, if anybody wants to go ride the LRT with me and check it out, let me know.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party, same question. You have 60 seconds.
Well, we would support the free transit organization here in Ottawa so that no one has to pay for public transit. We would have a publicly owned bus system and so we could travel to Toronto or anywhere else in the province. And we would have a rapid train travel.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, same question to you. The Ottawa region has had its fair share of difficulties with their public transit master plan, specifically the LRT. Regardless of what comes out of the provincial inquiry, will you help ensure residents get a system they can rely on?
Yes, we would ensure our environmental protection focus critically relies on the support to the LRT system and the public transportation in general. But in our view, there's been a lot of waste. The city has not managed our money as best as they could, and as a result, billions of dollars are being squandered in a system which has been inefficient. So our focus is, and there's also a system which is designed in France, which I am told by the engineers they didn't acclimatize to the Canadian geography, when we could have relied on Canadian made in Canada systems, which would have had supported job creation in Canada and would be acclimatized to Canada. So our focus is to make sure that doesn't happen again, and our focus is to make sure that we have a system that is efficient, that has a sufficient public oversight, and that there are not any sort of sweetheart deal arrangements which are going to result in... I'm sorry, Mr. Samuels,
you were out of time. Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
As a resident of downtown in Ottawa Centre, I was really disappointed with the LRT process. I think the procurement process for these things has to be transparent so that people in the community know that they're getting something from an engineering standpoint and from a scientific standpoint that is reliable, that is safe, that won't derail 5 times, that is suited for the climate of where we live. And the Green Party knows how important it is to, if I may use a turn of phrase, kick the tires on these procurement things and involve the community every step of the way in the procurement process for something like this. The Green Party, as you can imagine, is also looking at electrifying transit, which will bring down costs. And the lives of transit workers right now, I think, also affect the status of transit in our city right now, and giving them more benefits and a better work environment and incentivizing them will also alleviate the strain in this area of life right now.
Same question for Thomas Borcsok, who's running as an independent. The Ottawa region has had its fair share of difficulties with their public transit master plan, specifically the LRT. Regardless of what comes out of the provincial inquiry, will you help ensure residents get a system they can rely on?
Absolutely. I know many Ottawa residents pull their hair out when they think of transit in the city and LRT. The derailments, when it first launched, we saw so many public servants walking to work because they couldn't use Ottawa's transit to get to work. I think it's of critical importance that we have affordable, reliable transit in this city. It's a matter of people being able to get to work, get groceries, get around the city. Not everyone has access to a car. So it's of massive importance that we have, like I said, reliable transit in this city. And I will stop at nothing to make sure that not only do we get that in the city, but for whatever reason that we haven't had it for this long, someone is held to account, because it's unacceptable. These are our tax dollars going towards this transit system.
Next question. How would you help rebuild Ontario's economy? Joel Harden of the NDP, you have 60 seconds.
Any effort that tries to rebuild the Ontario economy has to focus on those who are truly suffering. I'm talking about 1 in 3 people in the labor market right now making less than $16.50 an hour. And that's because we've let tech giant billionaires like Amazon, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash move into our economy and lowball wages, not even call people workers, classifying them as independent contractors. The NDP government believes in workers' rights. We're the party of the union movement and the labor movement. And that's why we're going to make sure you get a raise, particularly those who are working in the gig economy and younger folks. If you want to form unions, we're going to make it easier for you to form unions. We're going to have a $20 an hour minimum wage. We're going to take labor infractions very seriously, and we're going to ask the billionaires of this province to pay up, to make sure they share the profits of those organizations they run with the workers who make them successful.
Same question. How would you help rebuild Ontario's economy? Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent, you have 60 seconds.
Oh, it excites me to rebuild Ontario's economy. Now, I don't necessarily believe that we should regulate too many things. I think business often knows what's best for business, so we should help them with what they need. But at the same time, I believe in investing in a green economy, doing what we can to help people transition from, dirtier jobs like coal to maybe electrifying the grid with the hydropower that we could get from Quebec, or helping Ontario become a world leader in building electric cars and batteries, because that's a growing business. We got to look to the future and invest where we can, make Ontario a tech hub, especially now that everybody can work remotely. There's no reason everybody shouldn't be working in Ottawa on all these new tech businesses. And so invest where we need to make us a modern leader and get this economy going again.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party. You have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
We would bring in a $23 minimum wage for all workers. We'd have a work week of 32 hours a week with no loss in pay. We would double the corporate income tax to 23% to pay for all the social services we need, like free transit, a publicly owned Hydro One, and others, free daycare, education based on need, and take education off the property tax.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
We would rebuild Ontario. Ontario's economy was substantively undermined and destroyed during the pandemic as a result of policies which focused on one set of rules for the Walmarts and the Amazons, which made billions of dollars from the pandemic. They were allowed to open. The policies were biased towards them. And the small business communities had another set of rules, which resulted in mass bankruptcies. So our focus on rebuilding the economy is to focus on consultations with small business is twofold. To focus on consultations with small businesses, which make sure that there's an equal level playing field with the big box stores and the Amazons, which have made billions from the pandemic, as well as a community economic development strategy, which supports entrepreneurship in the community by making loans available to small business communities, and to support the access to all communities in Ontario including those
Okay,
visible
that's
minorities,
time.
communities which are often left by the wayside in terms of any economic recovery process.
Mr.
So
Samuels, I'm
community
sorry,
economic
time's up. Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you for this again. So the Green Party is passionate about helping small businesses. Just to start off with an example, we would increase the staycation tax credit to encourage stimulation. We'd call for an immediate infusion of grant money for small businesses to boost eligibility. We'd increase customer service supports to help small business owners navigate the system. And we'd help small business owners with grants and rebates that lower utility bills, because again, these ultra efficient green communities in our vision would lower utility bills and cost less for taxpayers, and we would supplement retrofits. We'd revise the Ontario Building Code to make all new buildings built lower prices for people, and we would also create many green-themed jobs for new sectors of employment that are going to open up. It's also worth mentioning that we would, in our injection of funds to social services and making free post-secondary education, help people start new paths.
Thomas Borcsok, running as an independent. You have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
I think, rebuilding Ontario's economy is multifaceted. There's so many different ways to combat it. I think one way is by, compensating our frontline workers who have been, upholding our economy by, working in our hospitals, because we know that it is of critical importance that we have capacity in our hospitals, lest we have to go through more provincial closures. So repealing Bill 124 is of critical importance for, investing in our frontline workers and making sure that they can go home and, invest in the economy as well. I also think we need to increase the number of paid sick days that Ontario gives to employees so that they don't have to, consider possibly risking their job and their economic livelihood over, important events that they have, or important things that they have to leave work for, like their kids.
Same question to Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party. How would you help rebuild Ontario's economy?
It's a great question. I actually think that rebuilding our economy goes hand in hand with fighting the climate crisis. One of the things that's been so frustrating for me in watching the Ford government over the past 4 years is Ford's outdated view that it's the economy versus the environment. And that's simply not true anymore. We're seeing every major economy around the world go all in on clean, green business, and Ontario is going to be left behind. Ontario is so well positioned to be a leader in the new clean economy. We can make electric cars here. We can make the special insulation and windows that are required to retrofit buildings here. We've got an incredibly clean electricity supply that can be used for net zero manufacturing. So we are so well positioned to be a climate leader while also having it be a huge economic driver for our province.
Next question. What measures would you put in place to make housing more affordable to Ontarians? Josh Rachlis, who's running as an independent, you have 60 seconds to answer.
Affordable housing is a issue I often think about, because I know people say, well, we should have rent control. But I mean, on the other side, though, you've got landlords trying to make a living. And I believe often the market does tell you what things are worth. I mean, if people are trying to all live here, well, the prices are going to go up. So by artificially lowering them, that doesn't really solve the problem. People still, there's a lack of supply. So I think we should build as much as we can, because when you have more supply, then the demand goes down and the price goes down. Obviously, we need to build up. You can build more homes in tall buildings than you can just flat. Build communities where it's more livable. People can walk and bike to where they need to go. That's better for mental and physical health. And it also, once you have density, you can afford to put more places there, and we can all afford to live there.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party, same question. What measures would you put in place to make housing more affordable to Ontarians?
We would make sure that no one has to pay more than 20% of their income on rent. Personally, I pay 37% at the moment. We would build 200,000 social housing units for Ontario, and they have make rollbacks.
Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
We would make housing more affordable to Ontarians by, first of all, making sure that we have a social policy housing strategy. We support the eradication of homelessness, first of all. We support a social housing strategy which fundamentally ensures a minimum quality of living for all Ontarians to eradicate homelessness. We would also focus on making sure that look at rent controls and other systems which used to be in place, which ensured that housing was affordable and accessible to all Ontarians. But unfortunately, we have a system which just strictly focuses on the construction companies and developers and the owners of property, the large owners of property, which puts them in a position to exploit and to constantly have increases for people who are renters.
Okay, that's time.
As well as people who are trying to own a home. So we would focus on policies which
I'm going to have to stop you there, Mr. Samuels. Time's up. Same question to Shelby Bertrand, the Green Party. What measures would you put in place to make housing more affordable to Ontarians?
So I want to emphasize again, a lot of the people that are struggling in the affordable housing situation right now, the people who have it the worst are the people who would benefit from the injections of our social benefits packages. We are all about deeply affordable housing at the Green Party. That means protecting the often newcomer to Canada or ODSP recipient people who are vulnerable in aging private-owned houses that are sitting ducks for predatory corporations that want to do renovictions, as they're called. We would protect those tenants. We would make landlords demonstrate whether a renovation is actually necessary. For those families that still want a classic single-family home, our single-family homes will be built in low to no commute communities that are going to save you money. Your utility bills would be lower simply because of the structure of the house. And we would also impose a vacancy tax for many of the empty properties that are sitting in Ontario right now, driving cost up.
Thomas Borcsok, running as an independent. You have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
This is another issue that really is close to home for me, no pun intended, because I don't own one. I'm a beleaguered millennial, and I see the path to home ownership in this housing market to be near impossible. So there's a number of things within the province's purview can and should be doing. I think just from one side of it, I think we need to go further and ban blind bidding. But also, of course, we have to increase supply. The Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force recommended that we build 1.5 million new homes in years. So we really need to get going. I think it's of vital importance to end exclusionary zoning policies throughout the province, but also greater and wider implementation of inclusion policies to encourage developers with things like bonusing, density bonusing, to reward them for including affordable housing.
Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party. You have 60 seconds to answer the same question.
The Ontario Liberals have an incredible housing plan. We are committed to building 1.5 million new homes across the province. In order to do this, we're going to create a new Ontario Home Building Corporation that will both finance and build new homes. Some of these will be market homes for sale with a priority for first-time home buyers, and some will be non-market affordable units for nonprofit housing and co-op housing. We're also going to incentivize underutilized commercial spaces to be converted into housing, which especially here in Ottawa Centre, in our downtown core, could be a great opportunity to unlock some of these office towers and turn them into homes. We're also going to bring back real rent control so that we don't have a two-tiered rent control system to help make sure that rent is affordable for people in Ottawa as well.
Same question to Joel Harden of the NDP. What measures would you put in place to make housing more affordable to Ontarians?
The biggest single thing I hear about in Ottawa Centre from the 52% of folks who live here as renters is that rent is going up. People feel trapped in their apartments and they can't move because they know our rent control laws won't follow them to the next unit. Too many of the big corporate landlords in our downtown are jacking up the rent massively. They're even trying to buy people off to leave, but those folks don't have anywhere to go. In the NDP, we believe rent control should apply from tenant to tenant. There's enough of a margin that can be made in large buildings by the big corporate landlords to cover costs. But tenants need to have an affordable place to live. And we are the party that will stand up for tenants. We are also the party that's going to make sure we build non-market housing. 250,000 is our vision of cooperative and community housing units that we want to build in the downtown. And we want to be a partner, an active partner with cities and nonprofit organizations to get that deeply affordable housing available so the market comes to people.
It's now time for our closing statements. A reminder to all of our candidates, you have 60 seconds for your closing statements, and we will do this in reverse alphabetical order, and that is starting with Raymond Samuels of the Ontario People's Front. You have 60 seconds.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Rogers TV Ottawa for giving us an opportunity today to present our policies in full. Our Ontario People's Front, as I outlined before, is neither right, left, or center. We are a common front of Ontarians coming together who are concerned about the politics of divide and rule. We seek to create an innovative environment that represents communities, that brings communities together in the spirit of the defense of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, social justice, the affirmation of universal public health care, and a variety of other policies that you can check out on OntarioPeoplesFront.ca. We welcome any listeners out there to not only to support our campaign in Ottawa Centre, but also to participate in various ridings, participate in the growth of our movement so we can have an Ontario of our dreams based upon the ideals we seek to support as a bringing together of communities which feel disenfranchised, oppressed, marginalized, or simply have lost confidence in the status quo.
Stuart Ryan of the Communist Party, it is now time for your closing statement. You have 60 seconds.
We produce our platform calls for putting the people and the planet before profit. We would pay for all the public services we need, such as free health care, dental care, home long-term care, and free transit with a corporate tax of 23%. And we would build the movement for socialism by voting communist in the provincial election.
Josh Rachlis, who is running as an independent. Josh, you have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
Well, this is a surprise. I don't think I knew I was getting a closing statement, and I already introduced myself. But let me introduce myself again, as Austin Powers would say. Allow myself to introduce myself. I have noticed in the pandemic that people are feeling really lonely. So I've been posting in Facebook neighborhood groups that I'm available to go for walks or to meet on a patio. And a lot of people have reached out and I've met new friends. And so I invite all Ottawans to reach out to me if anybody is feeling lonely and wants to go for a walk, or just we could have a town hall on Zoom and talk about what issues there are. With social media now, we can reach each other and we can tell each other our concerns, and then we can pass them on to the government at different levels. So I'm here as a vessel for all of you who want to get the word out, and I invite you all to reach out to me, and we can help make Ottawa even more clean and green and prosperous than it already is. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. It shows you care.
Joel Harden of the NDP, it is time for your closing statement. You have 60 seconds.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, friends at Rogers. I just want to tell my neighbors in Ottawa Centre how much of a joy it's been for me to work for you, despite everything we've been through. I think who we send to Toronto matters. Even as an opposition member, I was able to get gains and a public inquiry into our LRT, rights for persons with disabilities and seniors, decent paid work placements for personal support workers. And as I said earlier, we've worked with over 7,000 of you on various needs you've had with provincial services. We work hard. That is the tradition of politicians in Ottawa Centre, and the NDP takes that very seriously. What I know is this, There are 59 billionaires in Canada, most of them in Ontario, who doubled their wealth in the pandemic. We have shortchanged our public services. We are shortchanging working folks in the city trying to get a break. We're here for you to get ahead. We're here for small business, workers, and we're going to build the kind of society our kids deserve.
Katie Gibbs of the Liberal Party, you have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
You have an important choice to make in this election about what kind of future you want for our province over the next 4 years. Do you want a provincial government that is going to listen to science and put people first? One that is going to invest in rebuilding our healthcare system, that is going to completely end for-profit long-term care and help seniors age at home? One that is going to strengthen our public education system, and one that is going to treat the climate crisis like the crisis it is and bring in bold solutions like $1 transit. If that's the kind of Ontario that you want, then the Ontario Liberals and me, Katie Gibbs, here in Ottawa Centre are the choice for you. We have an incredible team of candidates running across the province. We've got a platform full of bold solutions that can be implemented on day one. And I can't wait to work as your MPP to bring those solutions here in Ottawa Centre.
Thomas Borcsok is running as an independent. You have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to just appear here and say my piece. For those of you who have become discouraged or disillusioned by toxic partisan politics, trust your vote with me and know that I'll be working for the people of Ottawa Centre and not a political party. I'll be your partner in Queen's Park, raising hell and demanding competence and accountability from our elected officials. If you'd like to learn more about me and my platform, I'd invite you to visit it at my website at thomasborcsok.ca, and my last name's a bit of a doozy. It's Borcsok. Once again, that's thomasborcsok.ca. Thank you again.
Shelby Bertrand of the Green Party, you have 60 seconds for your closing statement.
So thank you again for hosting me today. It was a pleasure to be here. The residents of Ottawa Centre vote Green because they want leaders that give the environment the priority it deserves. But residents of Ottawa Centre should vote Green because the highest quality of life lies in the communities of our platform, communities with accessible and affordable public transit and walkable neighbourhoods, communities with proactive, not reactive healthcare, readily affordable primary healthcare practitioners, dental care, high-standard long-term care, and affordable normalized mental health services, communities that save taxpayers and municipalities their hard-earned money because they're just efficient. On June 2nd, I hope you choose better, better for yourselves, better for your family, better for your neighbors. On June 2nd, I hope you choose better for Ontario, and I hope you vote Green. Thank you so much again. It's really been lovely.
A big thank you to all of our candidates for participating today. We appreciate your time, and of course, we appreciate you for tuning in. A reminder to please get out there and vote, and to tune in to our in-depth coverage right here on Rogers TV on election night.